Time is 5:34. I'm sorry, I'm reading a text from my husband. He made dinner. Yeah, beef tips. Beef tips and mashed potatoes. Okay. Anyway, y'all could come to my house after the meeting for dinner. Roll call, Mr. Bailey. Mrs. Dean is going to be late. Mrs. Martin. Here. Ms. Miller is absent. Ms. Moores is absent. Mr. Osowski. The chair is here. Oh, we added Alicia. Alicia, are you here? I wasn't going to try to say your last name, so. Okay. Looks like Mrs. Dean is not going to make it. But we have 4 members, so that makes a quorum. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, the flag is in the back corner. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. President's remarks. So we've all been talking about the big eclipse. I hope everybody got a chance to look at it if they were so inclined. I thought it was really super cool. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. I do have additional remarks, however, I am going to hold them for a little bit later in the meeting so that so it aligns with some other remarks that I know are coming. So, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda of the April 8th regular meeting as presented? Moved by Mr. Osowski. Is there support? Seconded by Mrs. Martin. Is there any discussion? Sorry. Hearing none, all in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? Motion carries. Call to the audience, public participation, agenda items. So if you wanted to speak to us about something on our agenda, which I promise to get through as quickly as I can tonight out of respect for your time, now would be that time. I know Mrs. Warren is looking. These are non-agenda? Okay. All right. Yeah, thank you. I don't know where the train is. All right, so we will move on to our presentations, and we will start with a Teachtown update. Tamara Dillard, Executive Director of Student Services, and I believe she also provided us with a little handout.
There was a deviation written for the Act 18 budget for the county thanks, Kim, for Teachtown for ASD students. At that point, RISA was hesitant to provide the 5-year contract, to approve the 5-year contract, because things like education changes, those kinds of things. And so Dr. Puel, Gary Puel, myself met with Scott, our Teachtown representative, on March 22nd to talk about that 5-year term. And so through that discussion, we were able to get them, Teachtown, to agree to a 2-year term instead of 5 years, which is great. We got them to honor the same per pupil amount that was the 5-year, which is $337.50 per student for the 2-year term, both ASD and CIC. So that's a great thing for us. So this is just a breakdown of the finances for Teachtown, both for the CI budget and ASD budget. So our ASD students, we have 36 students in our ASD program at $337.50 per student. So that's $12,150. That's the Act 18 budget. So RISA has approved Teachtown for our Act 18 ASD center-based programs, which is wonderful. shipping and handling, totals out about 3,600. Material goods, so that is all the tangibles, the workbooks, the online subscriptions, all of those things. All of our students inclusive, that's about $60,000. So what I did was, I took a swing at this one, and I put all of our material goods in the Act 18 budget for our food club. So CI and ASB students for both programs, all of our teachers. So our Act 18, the approval letter from RISA totaled $56,000 and an additional $6,000 for training. They approved the training costs prior to approving the large money because of that 5-year contract. So they have approved everything for us, which is great. So 56,000, you'll see minus and 12,000 for people that 3,050. Take away the material goods at the 60,000 leaves us a negative 16,142 that we've got to have funds, right, for all of our students. And then 6,000 in that training. One thing that we remembered, which was great, was that we previously were approved for $12,600 for Teach Town in our previous budget. So we have to use that money by June 30th. So talking to RISA, they're allowing us to put that toward the balance that's going to be, that we're going to budget. So kind of down there in red. So we would need $28,741.52 out of our general fund for our CI students. Remember, our ASC students are taken care of, the Act 18 budget is used by RISA. Compared to the speaking of 5 years, this is a significant drop in the amount of money that we would have. One thing aside from all financials, which is not my strong suit, but that's okay.
So we have Mike for.
RISA wants us to be the pilot district for Teach Town. From Kansas, we worked really hard, and they want us to be the 2 districts in Wayne County to pilot this program for them. They are also planning to back Teach Town as a provider in Wayne County School District. So this is extremely exciting news for us. It's going to be great for our district, for our students, number one, and our teachers and teachers. That was quick. What are your questions?
So let me say this real quick. Working with Tamarin and Robin on this, this is an extremely good opportunity for the school district and our CI kids to benefit from the generosity of Wayne RISA. If you look at the student breakdown, our students account for about 2/3 of the kids that'll be using the program, and we'll only have to come up with about 1/3 of the cost because RISA has generously given us over $60,000 towards this, the materials. So, you know, to me, it's kind of a, I hate to say it, no-brainer, but it's a great tool for us, and we've got a great benefit here to pick up a lot of product for a little price.
Quick question. So what about we have additional students coming into the district? How is that going to cover? Because it's only covering these amount of students that we have right now.
Yeah, so we told them our numbers kind of fluctuate. Right now, we're holding at 36 AC, 64 CI students. So if our numbers do fluctuate, we'll go back and kind of refigure our float at that point in time. And we can ask RISA, we'll have to ask RISA communications, that's the case. But we have been holding tight with those numbers for the last 3 or 4 months, both programs.
But the vast majority of the costs are fixed at the beginning. That for materials, the $330 per head. I mean, we will have some fluctuation up and down, but if it was 5, if we had to buy 5 more, it wouldn't be a significant financial burden.
And we buy, the goods are bought for one time only, and so the only thing that renews is a subscription for each student, but the material goods are good across the board. And they're in grade bands, so K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12.
So after the 2 years.
Excuse me, just real quick. Could you please unmute? And anybody, when you speak, if you have access to a mic, I was reminded that we need to get in the habit of doing that. Thank you very much, Mrs. Martin.
Thank you. So after, you made me lose my frame of thought.
I'm sorry about that, but it was such a good question. I wanted to make sure it got picked up.
No question.
Oh, Mr. Bailey.
What's the other school district in Wayne County?
Plymouth County.
Yep. And those are the only two for Wayne County?
Those are the two that are piloting the program for Teach Town with waivers.
So nobody else has done this?
So, Utica schools they use Teach Town. I have another director there, they're using Teach Town.
For how long?
How long have they been using it? 4 or 5 years. So Reese is also prepared to relinquish ULS, which is Unique Learning System, as a curriculum, and not support them much longer and bring in Teach Town again as the preferred curriculum. But,
So you think this is a really good program?
yeah, I brought it into a previous school district and I've seen it work really, really well.
So Wayne County Association of School Boards, the president keeps asking for ideas within the different districts. And passing around ideas, I think, is very important. If they should ask, would you be willing to present to them?
On Teach,
Pardon me?
on Teach Town specifically?
Yeah.
Well, if you got other good ideas,
Sure.
That's a good idea.
thank you.
And
Question. So after the 2 years are up, then that's when we're gonna have like a mass. I guess you would do an evaluation of the program and to see how it worked with our students.
So we're gonna, the plan is to collect data on how well it's doing. So there are pre and post tests. The teachers have their roster, if you will, in the database electronically. That's where everything is housed. So we can write IEP goals, do those kinds of things. So we're gonna collect a lot of data to ascertain if it's working, how well it's working, what are the pitfalls, what are things that are working well, and what is not working.
get your teacher voice on here.
And did you?
Oh,
and-
that's true, right? Yeah.
And did you get a chance to follow up on the question about the parent aspect of things that was asked when you presented? The parent aspect to the access of the curriculum and things like that that was presented.
I did not. I will ask tomorrow. I apologize.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, we will move on to the 2021 Capital Bond Project Bus Loop.
No, that one's working.
I'm sorry.
It just needs to be tapped on.
Beach Bus Loop. Chrisman Company.
Oh, I think it was just.
She's not here, yeah. Welcome to the hot seat, boys.
Just make sure you press, it's green when you start. That'd be actually help.
This one works.
There you go.
Ask our IT person, that she would tell you for sure what she needs.
Everybody hear me?
Oh, now it's decided to not work.
Everybody hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so if the board can recall last meeting, we did present the proposed design for the new beach bus loop. We heard the board's concerns regarding student safety and interacting with the buses when they were coming through the bus loop. Our team, probably the next day or the day after, I want to say, circled up with the Chrisman Company and Plant Moran, Superintendent Witt, and the principal from Beach, and looked at the plan, and incorporated the board's comments into the updated design here for the beach bus loop, and that can be seen in red right here. So the concern that we had talked about prior, there was some lighting concerns, and then there was also concerns with the students playing in and around the playground area out here. So it's highlighted in red, has been added into the scope of the project, and this is a 6-foot tall chain link fence to separate the bus loop area from the student playing area. There are 2 gates that are in this fence. One's a 6-foot wide double swing gate that can be used for access. And the other is a 4-foot wide single swing gate that can be used for access from this exterior door right here of the building. This was important because we learned when talking with the principal that the students still do access this field over here. So during the day when they're traversing across the bus loop and these gates are shut and locked, these can be opened by the teachers to have a safe path to get over into the field that's right here. As far as the lighting, we did highlight on the drawing here, there is an existing operational light pole up in the corner of the parking lot right here. And then there are exterior lighting along the building that will be addressed as an owner project and not part of the bond program. So I guess the total cost of the changes that are highlighted on here in red with this fence was an additional $19,888. We already had the contractor price that, so that would be included in his contract amount. And the total amount that we would be asking for approval on for this would be $365,397. I guess, do you want to go back to the drawing real quick, Robert, and you can address any other questions that the board would have on that?
So I finally had the opportunity to go over there yesterday. I apologize, I'm not trying to blindside anybody, but I do have a few questions now that I have had a chance to go over there. My first question is impact to our neighbors. I think about the people who live on Olympia, who probably have lived there for many years, who bought houses on a quiet little dead-end street, and now we're gonna run buses down their street. I would probably be a little salty. I don't know, I mean,
There's a total of 8 buses that
Okay.
would go by there 2 times a day.
okay, see, thank you.
So, I mean,
That's not too bad.
I
That's
just
not too
wanted
bad.
to say what the volume
Yeah.
is. And early on in this project, that aspect was also explained to the township, and the township, and I know the township aren't the ones who live in the houses, but the township was completely, this was reviewed with Mike Dennis,
Uh-huh.
and he was completely fine with this rerouting, as well as it was also, at the time, we actually also discussed it with the township supervisor, and he also supported this.
Okay, so, because I feel like it's important that we're good neighbors, right? I remember back in the day when I went to church at what was Detroit World Outreach, and now it's something else, and before that it was Temple Baptist. They used to do a big blessing of the bikes every year, and that's a very noisy thing. If you've ever been to a blessing of the bikes, that is very, very noisy. And so they would go in the days prior to and the days after to their neighbors to offer, can we help clean up your yard? Because we're going to make all this noise, so we want to be good neighbors. So I'm all about making sure we're being a good neighbor.
And just to clarify, the bus drop-off time is, or the school start time is 8:15, and the dismissal time is 3:15.
Okay. The swing set with the fence, so there's swings right up there, right? Yeah. With the fencing going in, we don't have to relocate the swings, correct?
We are actually planning to relocate the swing set. It's not a necessity, but when we looked at the overall plan, and the other pieces we were going to take on as an owner project, we talked about relocating the swing set bay to the other side of that other play area, and there's more than enough space, and it actually gives additional hardscape area for the students to play on as well.
Right, because we're going to lose some of that by bringing a bus loop in there.
No, because during the day with those gates, another reason we're adding those gates, Brad, could you show where that front gate is? The front swing gate? At the bottom, yeah, to the south.
Yeah.
That's going to be a swing gate as well. So during the school day, both those swing gates will be closed. And the students will be able to play in all of that hardscape space, both on the, in addition to playing on the grassy area over there, they would be able to play, and in fact, we confirmed with Mrs. Nickel that they do play in that hardscape area and that hardscape area. So we're actually expanding the hardscape area that they have to play in.
Okay. Yeah, when I saw yesterday, I was like, oh man, I don't want them to lose like their little hopscotch area, right?
No, anything there will be relocated with the exception, possibly, and even these could be relocated by us as an owner's project. It would be the
Tetherball?
tetherball.
Yeah. Tetherball's a vicious sport.
But
Anyway.
that would depend on a conversation with Mrs. Nichol about how often the tetherball is actually used versus some other things.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's like, tetherball is like dodgeball. It's just brutal. Anyway, do we currently have staff that park along the back there? And are we losing staff parking by putting our bus loop there?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking in general.
So there are a ton of open spots back there
Uh-huh.
that staff do not utilize and park in.
Okay,
It would not be lost space for parking.
okay,
And we still have open spots.
okay. And then does the trajectory of the bus loop impact where our dumpsters currently set? And if they do, what's our plan for the moving?
We accounted for the dumpsters within the
Okay.
plan design.
I mean, I know there's like seemingly small questions, but they're helping me get a better
Yep.
picture of.
Yeah, those were
We've
accounted
allocated
for.
space right here as a hatched area to keep parking out for the dumpsters.
So they're gonna come in, okay, so it's Monday morning, they're gonna come in down Olympia, turn in, down into the bus loop. Are they dropping kids off along the back there? Or are they turning the corner? Where are we dropping kids off at?
They're gonna drop kids off in that area by the doors.
Right, okay. And then.
And by coming that route, the bus door is on the right side of the
Yeah,
area.
right, and so then in
There's two doors, the double doors or the single?
the,
The main hallway doors?
Yes.
yeah.
That's where I figured they were gonna go.
Yeah, so, and then in theory, they'll come all the way down the bus loop, exit out onto Pembroke, turn over to Beach Daily, and out onto Beach Daily, and traffic problem is hopefully eliminated, right? Okay,
Actually, the buses most likely are gonna turn to the left.
Yeah, go down the side street,
So they will,
Right,
the
they're gonna
buses,
come out,
part of what we're
turn
doing
left.
is trying to avoid creating additional traffic at that light on Beach Daily. So when
So-
they come out, they will actually route to the left.
down the side of the building in that parking area. Gotcha. See, I was like, okay, because if we're putting them onto Pembroke, we're really not eliminating traffic issue, but that does make sense. Okay. That is,
And again, small percentage of those buses are our buses.
right,
Another percentage of those buses are from other districts. In
Right.
fact, a higher percentage are from other districts because of the operation of the center-based elementary programs there.
right,
How many additional buses would you say?
It's 8 total.
totally.
Oh, like
It's 8 total, including
their schools?
the other schools.
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying overall, it's a small volume, and that volume really won't be there until after 8 o'clock in the morning.
Right, yeah. Okay. That's what I was, those are my questions. Are there any further questions? Mr. Bailey?
So, refresh my memory, what's the purpose of this project? The bus loop?
The purpose of the bus loop primarily is to improve the traffic flow at that building at arrival and dismissal time, given the fact that there are 3 main schools that share that area around Beach Daily.
So last year I went there because there were complaints on Facebook that the public said that was not getting addressed. So I went, took photographs, whatever, accused of taking pictures of kids and whatever as a result. Now, last year was atrocious in terms of parking. I mean, Pembroke was plugged. So I was expecting the same thing, and I was curious. If we come in off of Olympia down behind the school and Pembroke is plugged as what it was last year, wait a minute, that's a rhetorical question, okay?
Well, I'm just seeing if you actually have a question, or, because this is the time for questions.
That's right.
Okay, so do you have
Hang
a
on,
question?
Okay? So the thing is they came in, they come down to Pembroke, and Pembroke is plugged as what it was last year, where would it go? So I went last Friday and I watched, and I took photographs at 2 o'clock, 2:30, 2:45, 3 o'clock, and I made them available to the other board members. Now,
Conveniently leaving me off that communication.
so I talked with Ellis, and Ellis changed, David Ellis is the school that's next to Beach. They up at the beginning of the year their discharge time. And they also, instead of discharging onto Pembroke, they discharged onto Olympia, behind the school.
Behind them.
Also, we divided up the elementary schools into 2 elementary schools, essentially dividing the student population. So in essence,
That's not accurate. Your numbers, your math on that is flawed, Mr. Bailey. We also added the 6th graders to the elementary schools, and before you had students in 2nd through 5th grade at that building. So you didn't have the kindergartners or the 1st graders. So I did happen to receive a copy of your email, not directly from you, although as a member of the board, I think I've discussed how beneficial it is for me to know when you have questions, especially about relating to action items. And your math on that calculation is flawed. I also, once I learned of your communication, went to the building principal, who I had already discussed with, as was referenced by the team here, and confirmed with Mrs. Nickel that she believes that there is still a need for this bus loop, and her determination is, I'll let her speak for herself, do we need a bus loop at the building? Do you think it would improve traffic flow?
I think it would improve traffic flow and the safety of students and staff, not only in our school, but in the other schools in the community.
And Mrs. Nickel, just for the record, you have at least the same number of students that you had last year and possibly more.
I'm about 15, give or take.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we're very, very similar to what we had. And with the addition of kindergarten and 1st grade and a preschool program, it's even more dangerous because they're 2.5,
They're little.
3, 4, 5, 6 years old. We need to ensure their safety even more because they just
Right, because they just don't have that.
because they're learning.
All right.
to the chair.
Okay, Mr. Bailey, continue on.
So the thing is if you have the same number of students, you're doing a fantastic job. Because again, last year, it was terrible. You got kids going on into the road, trying to get in the cars and stuff like that. And it was just a matter. So I was in full support of $300,000 being spent to change that situation. But from what I've seen on last Friday, again, that was just one day out of the year, the parking lot looks to be largely empty. You can look at the photographs. The buses are handled in one area. The kids getting out are handled in another. The smaller kids are still walking down beside the street, whatever. But it's, whatever you did is a hell of a lot better than last year. So now I raise the question of $300,000 to build this, to solve a problem that was already solved at the beginning of the year. Because you still have the bus loop separated in the front, handling a different exit.
This problem was not solved, and it hasn't been solved in the opinion of the building principal.
We do our best every single day to meet the safety needs of our students and staff. And every single day, it is a battle to ensure that we follow directions, to ensure that we are not coming in the exit, to ensure that we are doing what we have asked them to do. We have had to collaborate with the schools on moving the same street as us to make adjustments to not just our school, but to their school. And it's really not acceptable for us to continue to say, you change, when we have a solution that's already been budgeted for and approved through the bond for us to handle it this way. So I fully support making this adjustment. I fully support the bus loop, and I appreciate that the district has asked
The other component that I just want to make sure doesn't get missed, and this is not the primary component, although we did tell the voters of our district that a bus loop was planned for this space as part of this bond project. The other part that can't be lost is the asphalt in many of our parking lots is in bad shape. This is one of those areas, and this is like almost twofold. We could not only, through this project, potentially have the creation of a much safer bus loop that will benefit us, but benefit the schools that are our neighbors as well. But in addition to that, it'll allow roughly probably 50–60% of the asphalt at this site to be significantly improved by the creation of this bus loop. And that's something that, while we have bond dollars, I think is definitely a huge benefit, because there are other areas of asphalt around our district buildings that we're eventually going to have to find other funds to improve. And this is a way to do both. It's a way to create that bus loop, and within the area that's impacted by this particular project, and it's a large amount of surface area, it will significantly improve the asphalt at that site.
Can I add one more thing? I think a beautiful piece of this process also is that it frees the front of our building up for no longer having to be the bus loop. So if there are medical emergencies, we have easy access to the school for, fire, police, to come in. We've had medical emergencies during arrival and dismissal, and it's been very challenging to get people the help that they need in the time that they need it. We've had to move cars, we've had to make a lot of adjustments. Having the front of the building available for families if they have emergency to pick up their kids, instead of saying, you can't park here, you can't come in here. It gives them a better straight shot to the main office to get the support that they need on a daily basis.
I will say, I didn't realize how bad that asphalt was until I was over there yesterday. I was like, oh my goodness. And I was actually shocked. I believe, Mr. Bailey, are you good? Do you have any further questions?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
I know, Mr. Osowski.
I have one question for you. Do you think there's any concern with parents cutting through there?
No, I don't. I was very thankful to have an opportunity to have conversation and to kind of walk through what the plan was. And we talked about not having that secondary gate. But with that concern in mind, we all agreed that we would keep that secondary gate. So those gates will only be open when arrival starts, when the buses arrive, and a member of the CFED or whatever program is called now will be out there in the morning to do so, just like they are out for arrival anyways. And then as soon as arrival is over, they'll do the same thing, they'll close them. So I am not concerned about that. I think with the way that the gates have been strategically placed, the way that the openings are so that we can still utilize the field and the blacktop, I think it's honestly a really big win-win situation for getting more than just a bus loop that we can address for
Okay. Mrs. Martin, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. All right.
Casual observation.
Sure.
Somehow this drawing ended up in my email from my office. But I've been looking at it, and from a taxpayer perspective, I see a couple of problems that have easy solutions. At that radius coming in, there's a separation between the concrete. There's a heavy-duty Titans, I think it's called concrete, and then there's a recap next to it. That's inviting erosion, it's inviting water, because of the two surfaces that come together. It might be better just to eliminate that. And also consider that that's a corner that buses are gonna be courting. I've been courting buses around that for a little bit. And they're gonna be driving across that radius. So that segment of the drive is going to get a lot of stress based on two different types of concrete coming together.
Have we,
The simple solution is about 10 or 15 feet past it, to just make that all one pool.
have we taken that into account? Okay.
And we
It's
could,
gonna add cost, I mean, it's gonna add cost, but.
But if it's gonna
overall
last us
maintenance
longer.
is going to be minimal.
no, but if something like that, changes like that would be under the threshold for a change order and things like that. We could definitely explore it.
Like I said, it's just an observation.
Yeah.
and It's about money, my number.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
other thing that I noticed is they're kind of limited in snow removal space.
Oh, yeah, where, do we have,
You've got the corner.
Where does it
Instead
go
of
now?
running that 6-foot fence all the way to the edge.
Yeah.
Just bring it around the corner there, leave it blacktop, and that's when you dump your snow. So
Where do
you
we
have
dump
that
the
whole
snow
area.
now?
The only
You know?
other
You don't know.
question becomes is water flow during the melts and during the rains. There isn't much of an elevation change of anything there, a foot, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You've got the culvert that's there, and I forget what it's called.
Yeah,
And you also have another one down in the turnaround. So
Right.
those two drains are gonna have to handle everything. So
Yeah.
the question that I would have with that is, we're adding more surface area to the ramp coming in, so that's gonna feed the one on the outside of the loop. And then the drains on the inside. I hate to see water start collecting along the building. No, I looked at the elevations are within a foot. So gravity will take over. It's just a question. Having that little fence there also impacts how you clear and remove snow.
To the chair.
Mr. Bailey?
Currently, around
That's
the,
all I have.
Thank you, Harry. I appreciate it. Mr. Bailey?
around the cul-de-sac, that fence has some walkthroughs.
Mm-hmm.
Are they gonna continue so that area can service those fields?
So I know there's,
Get into the fields?
I know there's walkthroughs like right about,
Yeah, those walkthroughs are gonna continue to be there, but they will be inside the fence.
I'm gonna come be a banner for a second. I know there's like walkthroughs somewhere about here, right? And then there's another one like up here, right?
And then there's one right at the bottom of the turnaround.
Right here. Yeah. So we're able to leave all of those in place.
Yes.
And then I know we raised this question, I'll say I was with Mr. Tuskey at the programming at the facility yesterday. I know there's a drain like right here.
That's what I was talking about.
That's
It's
what you're
actually
talking
down
about.
below
They have
there.
to like support, we have to do some support work there, right? So that it doesn't. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know.
This is the area right now for the current plan
Uh-huh,
that is being served as an initial patch.
okay,
So anything outside of that, we're not touching
okay,
as part of this program.
okay. All right. Thank you. All right. I think that's all the questions we have on this.
What was the total budget? What was the total budget previous? Before we said, like our original, we said we didn't want to go over.
Do you remember?
The budget for the previous bus loop was significantly higher because we were touching a significant more amount of area with that previous design. I want to say it was even more than 4. I want to
4 or
say it was
5.
like 5 or 6.
I think it was north of $500,000.
Yeah. Because originally the plan was to bring the bus loop, I'll show you after. Originally the plan was to bring the bus loop over here in the grassy area. And then because we impacted.
It was it was embedded in another package.
It was way back at the beginning of this. We've all slept since then.
And actually, I'll say this, it was larger to begin with because of the area we were touching, but then the reason why it didn't proceed is cost was gonna grow even larger based on what Wayne County was asking us to do because we were looking to expand the footprint of our current hardscape area. This is a resurfacing and reconstruction of our existing footprint. So that's why it's reduced in cost.
Okay. All right, all right. Thank you. Are we doing this?
Yeah, one more for you.
We're doing this one next? Okay,
Yeah, we just wanted to go over it.
good, because I had a couple questions about it too. Just some clarification, understanding. Not to be a thorn in your side, but.
All right, so the second thing that's up on the screen here is just to refresh everybody's memory. This is the new sewer line that is being installed along the south side of the high school. We do have a member of our engineering team here tonight, so if the board has any questions after I get through it, we'll be able to field those for you guys. But I'm just gonna
Smart guys.
run back through real quick kind of what we went through at the last board meeting. So can you come up to the first here? So,
Could you please use the mic again? I mean, you're loud enough for the people in the room, just so you know. The mic
so
is
the
really for the
tape picks you
recording.
up.
The recording itself. And so if anybody's looking at this in the future, they want to hear your profound words.
Because everybody wants to know about sewer drains
Yeah.
20 years from now, right?
So there is an existing pipe that travels north along the west side of the property. So direction of flow is coming this way, then cuts over to the east and travels beneath the existing high school, where it intercepts another line right here and travels south back into the neighborhood. There's also an additional line flowing in from the other side of the neighborhood that meets at that same location and travels south. So there is an existing line underneath the building. You go to the next page. So through the approval process with Wayne County, the county had concern that this existing county line running underneath the building, we were not able to verify the, I guess, the condition of that line all the way through. So there were some concerns about the condition and they're continuing to accept public water coming in underneath the building. They also had concerns about leaving the existing county line underneath the building in the event that it ever had to be serviced. So the change that we're looking at today is to intercept that existing line in the southwest corner of the property, cap the existing line so it's no longer accepting public flow underneath the building, reroute that line from west to east, and intercept it here back out into the neighborhood. So what we would be left with was the existing line abandoned in place from this point right here, still accepting all of the leads running into it through the building, and a new line that's basically bypassing that along the south side of the high school. So the total cost associated with this work is $181,915. So that's just to kind of refresh everybody from what we had presented at the last board meeting. So I guess going through that, does anybody from the board have any questions on this work?
So, the line that is currently under the building will still receive liquid waste, but not public waste. So, okay. So God forbid something happened to it, because then we're digging up our school, but I'm shocked that this design ever passed however many years ago this building was built, because who builds a massive school over, I mean, you know, I'm like, oh, good Lord.
That question was raised, and we did discuss it with our team. I know I did get a chance to send out some of the bulleted points about that, but I'll let them speak a little bit to that.
Right. So, I mean, it's incredible what we come across on these old schools and what was done and why it was done and why it was ignored or forgotten. But as we started the process and we were aware that pipe was there, discussions were held with the township. They were under the impression it was theirs. And once it got submitted to Wayne County, then it was dug up and the archived county drains, that it was in fact a county drain running through there. And who knows the history, why the building was built over it, and it wasn't relocated then. But we've seen it, it happens, and we do have situations where pipes are left under the building. It's very rare that that would be a public sewer, and that's what the biggest concern was here. We would love to abandon that line completely, but there are sewer leads and everything inside the building. And I don't know how you would do it without, you would be tearing up your building. Just like if something happens to it in the future, you would have to do something about it. But it's too extensive to really dive into it at this point.
And then to refresh my memory, I believe you told us in our workshop that you had attempted to camera that line and you had met up with some obstacles. I thought you had said that there was a cave-in, but then when I read the information that Jason sent, it's really about the way the lines
Yeah, it's.
juncture.
At some point in the line, when we were cameraing, we could not go any further. We were underneath the building at that point.
So are we at risk then, because you couldn't, so that raises the concern, are we at risk for a potential catastrophic failure? I mean, I know you're always at
Right.
risk with a sewer like that, especially old ones.
Sure, and there would never be a catastrophic failure. I mean,
Wow.
the building wouldn't, but what would if something happened and the pipe failed?
expensive
You would start
failure,
a sinkhole would start, and then,
Yeah.
school would have to be vacated at that
Yeah.
point. But the camera work that was done indicated that the pipe was in fair condition.
Okay.
Nothing that showed imminent failure or significant problems. There was buildup of deposits and things like that in it, but nothing that gave an indication. I mean, these pipes last a long time. And the other problem is it's deep. It's a deep pipe, 15 feet or more deep.
Oh.
So replacing it would be very, very difficult
Yeah,
to do.
right, okay.
But another thing this rerouting will do is it will, as was mentioned, it's going to significantly reduce
The amount of flow.
the future amount of flow.
Right.
Yeah.
Because no longer being a public sewer, all that flow will be diverted to the new pipe.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions? Mr. Bailey?
So you said you filmed this, right? Or you cameraed it?
Yeah, we were able to get a camera down a portion of the existing pipe. Mr.
And
Bailey.
did you record it?
Did we record it?
Yeah.
I believe we have a recording of that.
Can you pass that on to the school? If that's not in the game plan?
Yeah,
What?
absolutely. We can give it to Jason in the district.
Also, where did you meet the obstacle? Under the school or back by the other houses?
No, I think it was under the school, but I don't know exactly where it was. Yeah.
Just into the building, you said?
That's what I think is, that's where we.
We'd have to go back and verify, but I believe it was underneath the building, Mr. Bailey.
So now that we have no longer these houses providing a flow, is there going to be a problem, enough flow where, in the angle of the pipe, where there's gonna be blockages created from whatever dumped down in there?
Well, I mean, there's roof drains that still drain into it from the building itself. It's not ideal to have a larger pipe that doesn't have the full flow going through it. But again, I mean, the options here are pretty limited. And I think that we should probably work together to have some type of a maintenance plan for the school to, jet those lines out the best they can on a somewhat regular basis every couple of years. So that's, the roof drainage that does connect in through there hopefully should help push that through. Yeah, yeah, yep.
All right. Mr. Osowski?
My question is, with the quote and everything, there doesn't show anything on here for doing the sidewalks after you tear all the sidewalks up. Is that another extra we're gonna get further down the road?
So if the work does impact the sidewalk over there, we will end up having to replace
Well, that's the auditorium right there, right? So it's gonna,
Our goal is to damage, is for a better term, right? To damage as little of the existing sidewalk and hardscape as possible. So we will eventually get into some of that. Not really sure now until we start digging how much we're gonna be.
There's not much room over there, that's what I was looking,
Correct.
so.
Yeah, no, we will have to replace some of that at a later date after we're done with this work, but that's not, it's quantifiable right now with this.
So are they gonna start with this first, before the rest of the field, during school? Because isn't that where we drop our buses off for the kids, for the high school? Or,
Correct, yep. So we've talked with the principal and the administration in the high school to move the location where the buses are dropping off at. The idea is to start this work as soon as possible, because this is the low end of it right here. You always work from low to high when you're doing this pipe. So we would basically take over this portion of the exterior building right here and work our way west. Because the other portion of this too is that it's affecting the installation of the parking lot in this curb. We don't want to put the curb in just to have it disturbed by the pipe that's going in there too. So, yes, the plan is to do this before school is out, and we've worked with the administration of the school to minimize any impact to the students.
And there was a allowance provided on the high side relative to repair of the sidewalk areas that might be impacted. And it was de minimis. I mean, it was a small amount compared to, the amount that exceeded the $100,000 threshold was this amount. The amount for potential sidewalk repair is well below $100,000.
I was just curious about the bus.
Yes.
The students walk that way. Yeah, we're basically gonna cut off access right there when we're doing this work, so we can make it safe again for the students.
Okay. All right. Mrs. Martin, did you have any plumbing questions? All right. All right, thank you. We will move on to ESSER 3 funds. Mike Belching, Chief Financial Officer. I believe he has provided us a little spreadsheet here.
I really didn't intend this to be a presentation. I was just going to discuss it during my section, but we can do this. So what I wanted to walk you through was overall how the ESSER is laid out and the spending requirements, and then kind of how we've hit those marks and where we're at. So overall, the ESSER is split into two parts. It's 20% for learning loss, and that is a supplemental. Whatever you're doing at the start, you can't mimic that. It has to be new programs. For example, and the perfect example is our SEL team, right? Or anything incremental in that aspect. As you'll see down below, additional classroom technology that we needed to fully outfit a lot of our classrooms and those things. So there was a 20% requirement there, and then the 80% could be used for other district needs. And those are what we call supplanted, and I probably spelled that wrong. So the biggest thing with the 20%, if you did not hit your 20%, if you only spent 18% of your funds on ESSER, then you were only going to get, if you were short 2%, you were going to get shorted 2% on your supplanted costs as well. So you wouldn't lose 2% on the spend, you would lose 4%. So that's why it was important to hit that 20%. And ideally, the funds were meant to address a lot of the learning loss as it is. So that's the overall structure of the grant. And if you get down below, we can look a little bit on how or where we anticipate ending up at the end of the grant, which technically runs through September 30th of 2024. Our goal is to have it fully spent and we want to say pulled into our accounts by the end of June 30th, of the vast majority of it. So the largest chunk of it has been spent on our SEL team, wages, benefits, and supplies, and that is, which was established in the 2021-2022 school year as we came back off of the COVID break. And those are projected costs all the way through the end of the school year this year and through the summer. So those are current and projected costs. We've spent just under $400,000 on summer school, and that was 2021 and 2022 summer school costs. 2023, I believe, will end up in the title. We actually budgeted that under the title funds. So we used ESSER funds the previous 2 years to pay for our summer school. In the previous school year last year, we enacted, I believe it's called the enrichment hour. So every person in the middle school last year received an additional, in the first semester, either an additional hour of language arts or an additional hour of math. And then the second semester you would flip. Those costs accounted to about $330, and we added that to our ESSER. And then almost little over $450,000 went for Chromebooks, Promethean boards, and other classroom-related technology, where we pretty much, Kim, I think we pretty much got all of our classrooms set up with Chromebooks, Promethean boards, and fully implemented into the curriculum. And then there was some additional software that Chrome licenses, Manage Mindfully, and IXL Learning that were charged off. So at the end, we spent a little over $2.5 million, or 26.5%, so we're well above the 20%, which will release the full 80%, or the remaining $7 million, the other district. And that was spent, thankfully, on a new roof for Keeler a couple summers ago. So that was $705,000. We currently have in the budget other infrastructure spending of 2.9 within the budget. We are going to rework the budget and end up pulling that into the general fund, and then indirectly utilizing that for additional funds for the bond. Instead of directly using the ESSER funds where we would charge off the cost directly to the ESSER, we're changing our process. We're going to charge off some general fund costs, pull that into our own general fund, and then allocate those directly. It's a little easier, a little bit less red tape involved. Should save us a little bit of money on the red tape and other costs that we would have incurred running this through ESSER. And then that leaves a remaining balance of $3.3 million to pull into the general fund and go towards our fund balance. So the biggest thing with the presentation here is to kind of show you where we spent it, that we've hit our 20% goal, and where we're going through the rest of the on our journey to the end of September 30th here, and that we are on track to utilize all of those funds and pull them in.
Quick question.
Sure.
So with the ESSER funds, this was a grant, right? And is this something that's renewable or not?
No, this is one-time funds.
For the COVID stuff.
Basically, so this is ESSER 3. And each time they issued ESSER funds, they got more creative on how they put restrictions on them. The money, the size of the grants increased, but the restrictions on the spending also increased. These are one-time funds, though.
Thank you. And as it relates to the SEL staff and all this hard work that we have done to build up this department, what's going to happen to this particular team as it relates to, since we don't, say at the end of the grant cycle, once it's over?
We're accounting for those costs in our future budgets. And that includes the fact that the state has increased the amount of categorical funding in the areas of mental health and school security. So we have additional funds. We even received an additional grants. Do you remember, Jessica, the categorical number of that other money we received?
31AA.
Well, there was 31 AA, but then there was another six. Yeah, there's another 600,000 we got for some.
From RISA.
31N doesn't cover SEL, that would be for additional amounts.
But it's mental health, which falls under the category of student wellness, yes. So right now, the state is continuing to provide categorical, which is essentially one-time funding, but they've been providing it repeatedly for the last few years. and we will be able to cover the cost of those positions and account for those positions, mostly within those categoricals and as needed within the general fund. So we are, now that we've built up these SEL supports, we're not only looking to maintain them, we're actually looking to expand some of our mental health supports as well with some funding that the state's provided us.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Belchink. All right. We are moving on to student representative communication.
Good evening, everyone. So April is a rather boring month. April 4th, Redford Union finished their SAT prep. With that being said, April 10th, the 10th graders will be taking their PSATs, and the 11th grader will be taking their SATs. The following day, April 11th, the 11th graders will be taking the ACT Work Keys, which is an assessment that tests students' job skills in applied reading, writing, mathematics, and essential skills. Spring sports has officially started. The girls' tennis team and the softball team had their first game of the season today. And tomorrow, April 9th, the boys and girls track team will have their second meet at Hobart Middle School at 4 p.m. Earth Day is right around the corner, which is April 22nd, and the National Honor Society has gained permission from Principal Taylor to help clean and decorate the school courtyard.
Good job, Principal Taylor.
Decorate? Flowers is decorating.
They're decorating.
Flowers is decorating. And so is like birdhouses. So that's decorating.
See,
Yes.
okay. See, we got you.
Is there any comments or questions?
No, thank you.
Of course.
I know you have a statement, and I'm going to have you read that when we come to public comment, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Because it'll all kind of tie together. All right, superintendent's communications, you get 2 minutes. No, I'm kidding. Mr. Witt.
Our staff members of the month for April 2024 are listed on your agenda.
Yay, Chris.
For Keeler, we have Mr. Chris Norton, Coordinator of Teaching and Learning. And although I know he was there bright and early this morning, he didn't take advantage of his temporary parking spot.
Was somebody in your spot?
There was no
Okay.
one occupying the spot. I can speak from experience. Sometimes when you get there in the morning, you forget that you are the staff member of the month
Oh, okay.
and tend to park where you
blaming it on
normally park on other days. Beck Center, Jennifer Rottenheber, teacher consultant, DHH. Beach Elementary School, Rebecca Fitzgerald, kindergarten teacher. Hilbert Elementary School, Sherry Wazalewski, secretary. Day treatment program at Keeler, we have Brooke Lund, a teacher. Redford Union Junior High School, we have Mr. Ian Eiler, Dean of Students. And at Redford Union High School, we have Lynn Adolfo, SCL specialist.
Yeah, Lynn. Woo, Lynn.
She's right there in the corner over there by the flag.
Woohoo, Lynn.
Also, moving on then to the April 2024 Board Brag Book. And again, this will be posted online, so I'll just go over the highlights, starting off with Beach Elementary School. There's some photos there of Session 5 of our parent university, which has been moving between Beach and Hilbert this school year. And Session 5 was hosted at Beach. There's some photos there of that session. They also at Beach had middle of the year NWA goal celebrations. Mr. Gauchi and Miss Nickel made pancakes for the students who met the middle of the year growth goal for reading or math. I believe there were sprinkles included in those pancakes. There were a
Whipped
number of different
cream.
toppings they could choose from as well. March is reading month. So during the month of March, there were also many activities to engage students and get them excited about reading, including guest readers. that range from family members to district employees, students reading to other classrooms, and community members coming in to read to our students. They also had Book Character Day, and students participated in reading their NWA data and goal setting for the remainder of the school year to ensure that they knew what they needed to do to reach their goals. And so there's some pictures there of some of the guest readers, including, again, some students who were reading to other classes as well, and some obviously very creative costumes featured in there as well. Also at Beach, they wanted to highlight their new family onboarding meetings. Ms. Nickel and the Dean of Students at Beach implemented new family onboarding meetings for all families that joined the district after October. And I'll just skip to the end there. There were 27 meetings have been held to welcome new families to the district, and there's a example there of the new family onboarding meeting form that shows the type of topics that they cover with our new families when they come to Beach. So I know that this is something that we've set up some different committees to look at some things that different buildings are doing that they're having success with, and in order to have future discussions about replicating some of those things that are working well in other buildings in the school year ahead. Sixth grade, Hilbert Elementary School, moving on. They had their sixth grade zoo field trip. The sixth grade students attended an engaging class about bats at the zoo. So kudos to Miss Chartier and Miss Robinson for securing a grant for the students to have that experience at the zoo. Moving on, Hilbert Elementary also wanted to highlight their STEAM fun. Students use the engineering process to plan, develop, build, and test, in the month of March, of course, leprechaun traps.
Did we catch any? Darn. They all got away.
The leprechauns were successful in maneuvering around those traps, but kudos to the efforts of the students there. And again, this was done across different grade levels, and depending on the grade level, they took many different approaches to actually planning, developing, and building those traps. March is Reading Month, also all across the district. And so there are some photos there of similar to what was done at Beach Elementary School. I had the pleasure to read at both elementary schools and enjoyed it a lot. There's some fun pictures there also of some fun costumes, including a chocolate chip cookie, it looks like. And also at Hilbert, due to Amazon's generosity, sixth grade teacher Miss Robinson organized her co-workers from Amazon to come in and be guest readers. On the day they came, Amazon also donated several class sets of novels, as well as some equipment students and staff could use, including a balance beam, projection screen, a rug, and a desk treadmill.
Wow.
So thank you to Amazon for that.
Wow. Melissa's jealous.
Moving on to Redford Union Junior High School. Women's History Month and Reading Month. The junior high celebrated both Women's History Month and Reading Month throughout the month of March. To wind up Reading Month, students and staff got into the spirit of reading with our Spirit Week. The last day of Spirit Week was Dress Like Your Favorite Character Day. Staff and students all joined the fun. And they decorated their classrooms like Hogwarts Castle.
Yes. Totally cool.
The students were blown away by their experience and wanted to stay in the classroom all day, so kudos to Mrs. Kuka for doing that with her room.
How cool is that?
And there's some photos there of that. Also, Redford Union Junior High School to help guide our young ladies. Our 7th and 8th grade counselor, Miss Malone, set up a guest speaker to come and speak to students about health, hygiene, and dressing successfully for different occasions. The speaker has experience as a costume designer and not only had valuable information to share, but was able to connect with our students, quickly build a positive rapport where they were comfortable asking questions. So kudos to our counselor, Miss Malone, for setting that up. Also, at the junior high, as they continue to move towards the end of the school year, they march right into a lot of testing, which is the happiest time of year. Just ask Ms. Crenshaw and the staff at our buildings that coordinate those testing efforts. Our students completed the necessary digital readiness activities to prepare for the spring mandated testing, which will be online for the first time. And the ninth grade students who were unsuccessful in a class first semester have been coming after school to work on online credit recovery, so they enter 10th grade at the high school next year back on track. So kudos to those efforts. At the high school, the month of March featured our opportunity, and there's a number of pictures right there from the event, but it featured the opportunity for our high school to host the State of the Township address and luncheon. And I went on record during a short presentation, some short comments at that luncheon, that as we have improved facilities next year, we're already on record as requesting to host again next year. So hopefully the township will take us up on that offer, but it was a super well-attended event. And honestly, kudos to Mr. Taylor and to his entire team at the high school, including our security monitors and all the staff members who rolled up their sleeves and had their gym looking great for that event, and it was a highly attended event. They used every inch of the space, and next year, again, we're going to have even more improved facilities to host that event, and we're looking forward to hopefully having that opportunity to do so. And again, there's just a number of pictures of that event. Then moving on to Veritas, right here outside those doors in this hallway. And Veritas would like to thank Vashti Newton and Gabriela Alvarado from Hagera Health for their weekly work with the Veritas Girls Group. They have been working with the group of female students weekly, covering a variety of topics, including the importance of mental health, making healthy choices, coping mechanisms, the importance of healthy relationships, and setting boundaries. The girls who participate in the group have loved the lessons and discussions that they have had and expressed that they wish they could meet more often. So thank you to those representatives from Hagera Health for their weekly work with that Veritas Girls Group. And there's a photo there of that group meeting in the media flex space at the end of this hallway. I also would like to highlight one more thing. Last month, the district participated in an SEL week as well, surrounding the 5 core SEL competencies, and throughout the week, students across the district demonstrated kindness and giving through a district-wide penny war that raised $248 for a local charity. So thank you to Miss Jessica Miller for coordinating that, along with each of the buildings and the SEL specialists at those buildings.
To the chair.
Mr. Bailey?
On this Redford Union Junior High School, who's from the junior high?
Carissa and Katie.
It says that ninth grade students who were unsuccessful in a class first semester have been coming after school. How many kids are those?
I can give you the number.
No, just out
Yeah, I
there.
think it was around like 47, unfortunately. They all around one class. So what we did is we connected them all to Edgenuity so that they can meet second semester. They can come after school and work with a facilitator, but it is something that they can work at home as well. Some of them have already finished the class since they started it in the beginning of March. So they've really been using their time wisely. But again, we don't want to send students deficient in credit to high school next year. So we're working hard to get them back on track.
So there's 47. How many aren't participating? Are there any?
Oh, yeah, so that means about the other 100 and
I think what he means is, of the 47, are there any opting out to participate? Is that your question?
Are really engaging in the online credit recovery. Those are students that then we will push towards summer school, where they'll be able to.
So what number was that?
Classes. Have to see the number in a second, I don't want to.
Is it large?
Yeah. It's over. It's over. Yeah. I don't see how many are participating for it. So either way, we have multiple opportunities for them to make up those credits.
Thank
So
you.
if they're not coming after school, then we're gonna have to really make that push for summer school. Because we don't want to have it be an option for them to enter general education. You're welcome.
Is summer school, you have to pay for summer school classes? You do, for the credits?
Oh, no, it's open to all students and,
Thank you.
All right.
And for the sake of time, the calendar of events is in front of you, a copy of that. And that covers the period from April 9th through May 31st, 2024. There's actually a couple April 8th dates on there as well with the wonderful M-STEP testing beginning. So that calendar of events is right in front of you. It'll also be posted online for our community.
Okay. All right. I'm going to throw this question out there. What day is graduation?
Graduation is May 29th at 7 p.m.
Wow.
at the
Oh,
USA Hockey
that's
Arena.
early. Wow.
May 29th.
May 29th.
And Mr. Taylor has promised a speech of 2 minutes or less.
Well, because he knows he has to beat his predecessor's time on getting graduation done. All right. This is true. This is true. This is true. All right, moving on. Communications received by the board secretary. There are none, given that Mrs. Dean is not here. Chief Financial Officer's communications, mid-year budget update. Mr. Belting.
So Mr. Witt brought something to my attention at the last board meeting, and I think there may have been some miscommunication, and I apologize for that. I had mentioned the ever-dreaded word deficit. Okay?
That you almost gave me a heart attack.
Yes, and
See, I told you.
Because I lived through that.
Understanding where you guys came from pre-COVID into this year. My comment related to current year expenses and current year revenues minus any of the one-time. So we're picking up about $7 million between the cell tower and the ESSER funds. And so if you back off those extra over and above revenues, we would only be at a deficit for the year of $250,000, right? We still end up, we carried over a fund balance of $5 million from the previous year, 5.1. And then we will still add another 6 to that overall. We are healthy, we're well within, that happy range that we don't have excess funds, but we are protected.
So while we will have deficits spent, we are not bringing the district into deficit because we still have a healthy fund balance.
Yes, and
That's a really scary word around here, let me
so,
just
so,
say.
so I apologize. And a lot of times on the corporate side, you will exclude, when you're looking at your core financials, you'll exclude high one-time expenses or unexpected revenues and things to try to get down to the core
Yeah,
business,
but we
right?
can't do that.
So that's what I was just trying to show is and overspending by $250,000 in 1 year is a solid, yeah.
Yes. All right.
So I wanted to clear that up, and I appreciate Superintendent Witt for pointing that out. So, and I will try not to use the word deficit.
We
any
will
further.
let you live.
Well, it was just based on some of the reactions about some of the discussions after that fact. It didn't occur to me immediately in the moment, but then reflecting upon it, I had a conversation with Mike, and I said, I believe, and rightfully so for all those who lived through it, that word was the only thing they heard, and I knew that we had a healthy fund balance. And we're on track with where we need to be, far beyond where we were when we were in those other situations. And I just wanted to make sure to reiterate that to the board.
Yeah, there will be times there will be a point in time where we decide to eat into that fund balance.
Right.
But that will be a known, and we'll track that. But yeah, on a an annual basis, the goal is to break even as much as possible.
Right. Thank you. Moving on, Executive Director of Human Resources and Labor Relations Communications, Mrs. Nachman. All right, good job. Executive Director of Curriculum and Technology Communications, Mrs. Crenshaw.
Since I yelled at everybody else about the microphone, I figure I should use one. I don't know if you heard or not, but testing started today. So the last few weeks, we've been doing
Yay, spring.
a lot of preparation. College Board has been super awesome to work with for the last few weeks. But we made it through, and I think we're ready to roll. So that's our big news there. Mr. Norton's working with a group of elementary teachers right now to finalize some ELA programs for our elementary K through 5 or 6. And our ELA program will be updated here in the next, hopefully in the next year. So we're finishing up some meetings there, and then we hope to bring you guys a presentation of some sort on that within the next couple months. So that's been a big task, and he's worked really hard on that. So those are all of my updates for the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have contact information, Mrs. Crenshaw. I'm going to send you an email. I met a wonderful young lady in my store recently who is currently working at Fisher in South Redford. She's an entrepreneur, and it's about a program that teaches Spanish to elementary kids using hip hop. And so I gave her my contact information, and she has sent me an email, and I will be forwarding that too, because the video she showed me was really cool. And if we can support young entrepreneurs, and it's a great way to teach Spanish, then maybe it's something worth looking at. She was amazing. All right, moving on. Consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda items, it always ties me up, as presented? Moved by Mr. Osowski. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Mrs. Martin.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Mr. Bailey?
So on March 11th, in the minutes, the minutes are legal documents. So
Correct.
under the president's remarks, it was President Bridemore stated that she must make it clear that the archaic sexist opinion of Trustee Bailey was not the opinions of the Redford Union School Board nor the Redford Union School District. Who wrote the minutes?
Mrs. Warren wrote the minutes.
So, in the policy, page 7, RU bylaws policy, it refers to Robert's Rules of Order. On Robert's Rules of Order online, it says for writing a minute, the duty of the secretary is mainly to record what is done by the assembly and not what is said by the members. He should enter the essentials of a record. I think it's called clink.
So would you prefer that I ask this board to pass a resolution condemning your comments and action? Because I can make that happen, I'm sure.
So, as I continue, in clink, or whatever, it's software for writing minutes. And what should not be included in meeting minutes? Why do meeting minutes matter? It's for accountability, enhanced communication, legal compliance, which is true, it's a legal document.
And so you certainly don't want on the record that you're a sexist pig?
Okay, guys.
And what should not be included in meeting minutes? Personal opinions and comments, excessive detail, tangential conversations, verbal exchanges or arguments.
President's remarks,
Unconfirmed information, confidential or sensitive information, off the record remarks. So, this, and Let me ask you, are these are these minutes
Is your,
vetted?
would you like them stricken from the record, Mr. Bailey, from the minutes? Is that what you're asking us to do?
I'm asking for a course of how these minutes, they're vetted by the administration, is it not, before it comes out to us? Or, Ms. Warren, you just write them and send them out?
These
Yeah.
minutes are a record of the Board of Education, so I don't police the efforts of the Board of Education.
You don't review the minutes before they go out?
No,
I
because
don't,
they're being
because-
reviewed here.
The opportunity for those minutes to be reviewed by the body that is in position to review them is here at this meeting. It's not my job to review the board minutes, Mr. Bailey.
Very good. So, what I'm saying here is this is all subjective information.
Okay. So are you asking that the minutes be amended to strike my comments from them? Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking you to put the fact, if you want to put what it was read or what was said, I have no problem with that. But you're not going to put a label into a legal document that's going to go on forever in the record.
So are you asking that the minutes be amended? Yes or no?
I'm asking you to make a decision on
Okay.
an error in the minutes.
It is not an error in the minutes, and so I hear no motion. I hear only a complaint, and so we will continue on. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say yes? Opposed? Motion, no? Okay. So the consent agenda does not pass.
Why don't we redo the motion so
Are-
that March 11th minutes,
Make a motion.
Then make
You
a
have the
motion.
ability, Mr. Bailey, with all due respect, under the consent agenda allows for the removal of any item that's under the consent agenda from the consent agenda that might be contested. So therefore, potentially, the remainder of the consent agenda could be approved. And then that item would be reviewed under special consideration, non-consent agenda items.
Correct.
So it would be a common individual, but Mr. Bailey, I cannot make a motion for that. I'm not a member of the Board of
Well, you're
Education.
speaking for me. So what I'm saying is,
I'm not speaking for you.
under the consent agenda is everything else except the March 11th minute.
So you are asking to amend the consent agenda items and remove item A, waive the reading and approval of the March 11th, 2024 regular meetings of the meeting minutes of the Redford Union School Board of Education as presented. So we can remove that. That becomes a special, its own action item, which can then be debated as to whether or not you want those minutes amended. And we can then move forward and approve the rest of the meeting agenda. Is that what you would like for us to do? That's your motion,
No,
correct?
You make the motion,
Okay.
you don't move for it.
So Mr. Bailey has moved to amend the original motion to remove item A from the consent agenda items. Mr. Osowski, are you okay with that amendment? Sure. Mrs. Martin, are you okay with that amendment?
Yes.
So we have removed item A, and it will now become special action item
It's under B.
B. Oh, yeah, it'll go down to B. Sorry. So, having removed that, can I get a motion? Okay, we're amended. So all in favor of approving the amended consent agenda, say aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right,
So what happens to A now?
drops
it
to the,
becomes,
down here.
it comes down,
A will be considered under items removed from consent agenda under section 15 action items.
like, we used to do it when we had layoffs because we never wanted to consent agenda a layoff. We always pulled them because we wanted roll call votes. We don't often have to do it anymore. All right, moving on. Action items. Action item A, special consideration, non-consent agenda items. Item number 1, Teach Town. Can I get a motion that the Board of Education, at the recommendation of Cameron Dillard, Executive Director of Student Services, Kim Crenshaw, Director of Curriculum and Technology, and Jason Witt, Superintendent, enter into a 2-year contract with Teach Town to provide training as well as instructional and curriculum-related materials to the Redford Union School District in the amount of $103,350. This cost will be covered through a combination of Act 18 and general fund funding. Act 18 funding has already been approved by Wayne Risa.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Osowski. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Martin. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote. Mr. Bailey? Mrs. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Osowski?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion carries. Item 2, 2021 Capital Bond Project Beach Bus Loop. I have to make the motion before we can discuss. Can I get a motion that the Board of Education, at the recommendation of Michael Beltink, Chief Financial Officer, and Jason Witt, Superintendent, and the Redford Union Schools Bond Team, approve the 2021 Bond Project's Beach Bus Loop as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Osowski. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Martin. Is there any discussion? I believe that this is a decision that could potentially need the full board to pass, and it is my recommendation that we table this to our
Special board
workshop,
meeting. Special board meeting.
if that doesn't negatively impact our ability to start. I'm concerned that it's not going to pass.
I would say this, because the work on the beach bus loop is not expected to begin until after the school year, that while we would like it approved as soon as possible, if that's the will of the board to table it to the April 23rd, I believe, did I have my date right? To a special meeting at the Tuesday, April 23rd meeting, then that's the will of the board.
Mr. Osowski?
Would that have, based on what you guys know now, would that have an impact?
Our pricing that was solicited from the subcontractors was good for 60 days, so we're checking right now to see when that date.
Okay, so we'll hold tight before we discuss.
To the chair.
Mr. Bailey?
So what do you think
Um,
would
it,
happen or benefit by having other members present
Well-
to decide on this?
currently, it will take all 4 of us to vote yes,
All
And-
4 of us want.
to pass this, because there are only 4 board members here.
4 is a majority of the
So
board.
if 3 of us say yes and 1 says
Is
no,
there a difference in the rules?
Mr. Bailey, when there
But
are
always a
it's
majority
a
of-
7-member board, there's always 4 votes needed
yeah.
to pass a resolution, whether it's not a majority of those present, it's a majority of the 7-member board. Now, another approach, and I will speak to myself, and I'm not saying that I don't want to see this be voted down a second time. You could proceed, you can see what it is, and then I guarantee you, if this doesn't pass again, unless somebody absolutely directs me not to bring it back to the board, then I'll be bringing it back to the board and we'll schedule a special meeting on April 23rd. So if it were not to get 4 votes tonight, I can promise you, it's my intention to bring it back to the
Okay.
board on April 23rd. At the same time, I respect it if it's the will of the board to table it. That is an opportunity too, and that's actually the current item that's on the table.
So instead of stalling everything, why not, he's gonna bring it back anyways, why not see what happens?
What is the will of the board? Mr. Osowski,
I can vote.
you feel like you're ready to vote?
Yep.
Mrs. Martin?
I can vote.
Mr. Bailey, you're ready to vote?
Yeah, I'm advocating for it.
Okay, well, earlier tonight, I would have believed that you weren't advocating for it, so that's why, that was my concern. All right, we will not table it. We will go proceed with the vote. Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mrs. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Osowski?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. All right, moving on. 2021 Capital Bond Project Secondary Campus Change Order. Can I get a motion that the Board of Education, at the recommendation of Michael Belting, Chief Financial Officer, and Jason Witt, Superintendent, and the Redford Union Schools Bond Team approve the 2021 Capital Bond Project Secondary Campus Change Order as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Osowski. Is there support?
Support.
Seconded by Mrs. Martin. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, this also requires a roll call. Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mrs. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Osowski?
Yes.
Okay. Chair votes yes. Motion carries. All right, we did have an item removed from the consent agenda, and that was item A regarding the March 11th regular meetings and Mr. Bailey's concern with what is in the meeting. So here's basically where we stand. You can ask Mr. Bailey, you can make a motion to have those meeting minutes amended. That is absolutely your option, and then we can see where that goes. Otherwise, we need to move forward and either pass them or not. And then if we don't pass those meeting minutes, they don't become public knowledge until the May board meeting.
So I make a motion to strike the opinions that are stated within the March 11th under 2024 President remarks.
Okay.
What about his remarks? They were opinion.
What's that?
The question is.
I have a suggestion to offer potentially.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Do we gotta do a?
Well, I mean,
I think we have to.
If
we
we
have to
don't-
go with the motion first.
right, I understand that, but
Yeah.
I just want to present a alternative to the motion that's currently on the table.
Okay.
Is we could
I don't know if that's.
amend the minutes. The minutes could be amended and brought back to a future meeting, which they're probably going to have to anyway.
Right.
Like, if you're going to seek an amendment, we either have to identify every single line in this document tonight that you want to see amended to really have a motion for people to fully consider, because there's going to be a difference of opinion on what Mr. Bailey has stated is opinion.
But it exists.
Right.
Bailey's already got a copy of it.
Right.
It already exists in the form that it is right now.
Right.
And it could show up on the internet at any time.
But if, all
so
I'm saying
sorry.
is, if the minutes are not adopted tonight,
They have to be adopted.
if the minutes are, they eventually have to be adopted, which is going to require amendment anyway. So all I'm floating out there is consider the motion. If the motion doesn't pass, then we're going to have to eventually bring minutes back for consideration by the board. Because there have to be minutes from that March 11th meeting that are ultimately approved. And I just think it's going to take a long time tonight to consider what people are claiming they want struck from this record. And now that I said that, I'll
Okay.
stop.
So the current motion is to amend the minutes to strike my comments as they are perceived as opinion. That is the motion.
Motion was to strike the opinion.
Right.
He didn't say yours.
Well, he said the president's comments in the president's remarks as opinion. So that is the current motion. Is there support for that motion?
Support.
So Mr. Bailey has asked for an amendment. Mrs. Martin has supported it. Is there any discussion? Well, I'm going to say this. If you're going to strike my comments, then I want every single one of your comments stricken from the record as well, because they are opinion, Mr. Bailey, and not fact. Having said that, I believe this recalls a roll call vote. Mr. Bailey?
So, again, what's supposed to be in here, the duty is mainly to record what's done by the assembly and not
Okay.
what is said by the members.
That's fine. I
Go
can.
ahead
I-
and strike all the things I've said.
You know what, I know how to handle that because I am prepared to bring a resolution. I am the head of the assembly. I am the duly elected president of this assembly. However, I will put this to a vote, the current motion to a vote. Mr. Osowski? No. Mr. Osowski's vote is no. Mrs. Martin?
I guess I have a comment before I vote. At our last, I want to say study session, we were talking about parents, and it was a comment made about parents being an idiot. That comment was made. And I think just in general that we have to be careful on how we talk to community members, parents of the district, because we set the example as the district. We are the head first. And so we just going forward, we must be conscious of our language that we all use, not just Mr. Bailey, but for all members of the board. With that being said, I choose not to vote. I'm not going to vote on it.
So you will abstain from that?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yeah.
And the chair will vote no. Therefore, this motion fails. Rest assured, Mr. Bailey, that I'm fully prepared to bring a resolution to this board in our May meeting, and possibly a censure to condemn your comments. Going forward, moving on. Call to the audience. Public participation regarding non-agenda items. Before I call to the audience, I will go first. I have saved my president's remarks for this time, and then I will ask our student representative to speak. I believe she has a statement as well. So I'm going to start with, once again, I find myself compelled to comment on remarks that have been made by a member of this board. Last month, I spoke against the comments that Trustee Bailey made regarding the Larry Nassar victims and his previous comments made to a staff member about women staying home and having babies. Later in the same meeting, Trustee Bailey answered my remarks. He began by apologizing and saying if he hurt my feelings, apologizing if he hurt my feelings. He then proceeded to justify his remarks more than once by calling them political satire. He again proceeded to make further disparaging comments about women by saying that it is our patriotic duty to pop out babies. First, let me say, my feelings are not hurt. I am instead offended and angry by your continued disrespect for women, and I can no longer allow it to be tolerated. Secondly, political satire or politics of any nature are inappropriate for a member of this nonpartisan board. We are not technically employees of this district, however, we are representatives of this district. And that brings me to this conclusion. If comments were made within the framework of our places of employment, I venture to say that we would be disciplined and very likely terminated for sexual harassment and or creating a hostile work environment. And while I do not have the power to fire you, only the voters can do that, I do have a voice, and I choose to use it to call for your immediate resignation. Finally, I want to once again say that the attitudes and comments made by Trustee Bailey about women do not represent the attitudes or opinions of the Redford Union School Board or the Redford Union School District. Alicia.
Good evening. My name is Alicia Jeswick, and I'm the student representative for Redford Union High School. I was given this opportunity to speak for the student body by Principal Taylor and other staff members because they saw me fit for this position. Today, I'm here to address comments made by a board member based on damaging ideologies. February 12, 2024, Mr. Bailey not only insulted victims and survivors of Larry Nassar, but everyone who has been sexually abused. Mr. Bailey went on to say, Mr. Bailey went on to say that in the case of Larry Nassar, there were 200 to 400 women who went to court to claim their money, but only 2 women pushed the story of Larry Nassar's abuse. I cannot start to express how untruthful and disgusting these words are. Larry Nassar overpowered these women for years on end and got away with it despite multiple reports being made. When something as traumatic has happened to you, you question everything. You question whether you did the right thing and whether you reported it correctly. 156 survivors took time to write a speech and present their statements not only to the court, but the whole entire world. It is appalling to hear the survivors being discredited for standing up and taking a stand. These survivors were not in it for the money, yet for the justice that they deserve. Mr. Bailey not only made disgraceful comments regarding Larry Nassar and sexual abuse victims, but talked poorly about upcoming generations of women. Mr. Bailey said how it's a woman's patriotic duty to give birth. But also, Mr. Bailey went to talk poorly about the student body after seeing test scores in the district. I am here to testify that our district now and in previous years has flourished in their own way. Not every student may be good at testing, but it does not give us the right to talk poorly among the students. Based on these comments, I no longer feel comfortable having this member on the board to represent this school district, a school district with a student body that has different weaknesses and strengths. Young adults who may have experienced those sexual abuse, and a school district that is primarily female. Thank you.
I will now do call to the audience. I'm very proud of you. That takes a lot to speak up.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing
All
your
right,
voice.
so call to the audience. Mike Taylor, high school principal. No.
Well, good evening. I know some of you are going to find this hard to believe, but I'm going to be brief.
2 minutes. Oh, wait, no.
I did have a prepared statement, but after listening to my student, Lisi, over here, I scrapped that. I planned on to speak regarding some of the comments made by one of our trustees. October of 2022, I believe it was, I was sitting in my office and I had one of my Spanish teachers come down in tears because of a conversation she had with one of the board trustees. I believe it was at the junior high or the middle school at the time, Halloween dance. And she was disgusted and hurt by comments made by that trustee regarding him telling her it was her job as a woman to stay home and have children. And the lack thereof, I guess you could say, is a result of our decline in student enrollment across the state. So after myself and Mrs. Robertson, our assistant principal, counseled this teacher for the next 45 minutes and convinced her to stay the rest of the year to be our teacher for our kids, she eventually left the district at the end of the year. And while we can sit there and say that this was not the reason, I can assure you this played a large role in this. So here we are tonight, 18 months or so later, and I'm listening to one of my students speak to the fact how hurt she is, how offended she is, how disgusted she is in this trustee's comments. I did not ask her to be on this board. We did not approach her to be on this board. The students did not agree to have her as a representative so she could sit up here and take this. This is quite frankly embarrassing. As a principal, I'm embarrassed. As an alumnus, I'm embarrassed. I'm humiliated to the point where I have a hard time not apologizing to her parents every time I see her father at school because of what her daughter is going through now. I think being tone deaf is something we all need to be aware of, and I think several comments from this trustee over the last 2 or 3 years, or however long he's been on the board, have been extremely tone deaf with not only our board members, the central office administration that sits at the board table, but our students now as well. When we have students being impacted by comments that the board members are making, it's time to move on. I can tell you, I've been around here for 23 years as an employee. I've never seen a circus like this in the last 2 years. And make no mistake, this is an absolute circus. And I hope that your camera that's recording me, you're going to post on your Facebook page and not edit this out, and not edit the rest of the speakers out as well. So as a voice of the staff at Redford Union High School, I'm going to also speak on behalf of the administrators who are here, who I represent with our administrators group. We cannot have a board member that's not welcome at the high school, who's not welcome at the junior high, who's not welcome at Keeler Day Treatment, who's not welcome at Beach Elementary, who's not welcome at Hilbert. And make no mistake, that board member is no longer welcome in any of those buildings. So we've seen the problems that we have now. So with that said, I am also going to respectfully call for the trustee to resign, Mr. Bailey. And if he does not, which I don't anticipate he will, I will make sure that we will be changing venues for next month's board meeting to a much larger space, and we will pack the gym with as many teachers and community members. And unfortunately, I don't want to involve students, but I'm sure the students will get wind of it and be there as well. And then the fun will really start. Thank you.
Valerie Von Frank. Valerie, if you could just state your name for the record and who you represent. It's a little green mouth there. There you go.
My name is Valerie Von Frank, and I'm here tonight as Executive Director of the parent group Posse, founded in the wake of the MSU employee's sexual abuse case that you've referred to. I'm also the mother of a survivor. I represent nearly 4 dozen parents, family members, and dozens of the girls who call themselves the sister survivors. I'm here tonight because I want to remind you that every one of you is an elected representative of your community, and that words matter. What you say here may seem confined to this room, to you, or you may think that no one really pays attention to what you're saying. But I can tell you that your words have repercussions. I also want to remind you that your tone has repercussions. Every one of you here is setting an example for Ms. Juswick, Every one of you. Is this how you would allow students to act in your schools? I'm sorry, but coming as an outsider to this situation, I don't know what's in anyone's heart, but I can tell you what I've observed has been disturbing. You set the tone for this school district and for every student enrolled here, and you represent Redford to those listening from outside of this district. When you send the message, going back to the comments that everyone is upset about, that survivors of sexual assault in the Nassar case were simply lining up for money, you are telling survivors right here in your district exactly how they will be perceived if they come forward to report their assaults. Do you want to tell that 10-year-old, that 14-year-old, and your own daughters who may be victims that those who report are seen as ambulance chasers or money grabbers, as our courageous daughters have been called for reporting as victims what was done to them by a perpetrator? While that might not have been the intent of those remarks, words matter. And speaking without facts matters too. 156 women spoke over weeks in Ingham and Eaton County courts about what one man did to them, and more importantly, about how it affected them. Before Weinstein or Epstein or R. Kelly or many others, these courageous women, the sister survivors, set the example, and they showed that there is no shame in being the victim of a sexual assault. They stood up to say that it's perpetrators who should be ashamed. And shaming victims by saying that they lined up for the money is absolutely contrary to why they spoke out and used their own names. My daughter was not one of the 156 who spoke in court, but there were dozens other at that time who wrote letters to the court because they just simply were not ready at that moment. And let me state for the facts that there are 546 victims in the first and second waves of survivors who came forward, way more than Mr. Bailey alluded to. More have come forward since then, and many more will never be public. And that's because of careless remarks that people make about survivors. I've talked to dozens and dozens of the sister survivors over the last 5 years, and there's not one of them that would not give back any money that they got in exchange for not being sexually assaulted. They live with that every single day for the rest of their lives. It affects their mental health, it affects many physically. And I'll not go into the details of that because of time, but it doesn't take much research to find that the related PTSD and physiological issues that occur as a result may never go away, never mind the billions of dollars in lost wages from those who are diminished by their assaults. And there are many who have taken their own lives. So let's take a moment to consider a few statistics. Every 9 minutes in this country, a child is sexually assaulted. A child is sexually assaulted. This is not an equal opportunity crime. 9 out of 10 victims are female. In fact, the CDC says that 1 in 4 women experiences sexual violence in their lifetime. 1 in 9 girls under the age of 18 will be victimized. So that's 1 in 9 girls in your schools, according to the Sexual Assault Victim Advocacy Agency. It's 1 in 53 boys. 975 out of every 1,000 perpetrators will walk free. Only 25 will go to jail. And only an estimated 4 in 10 rapes are reported. I wish I didn't know this information, but now I do. Because starting when she was 12 years old, my daughter was assaulted over a period of 8 years, seeing someone that our family trusted to help heal her. Society's first expectation of parents is to protect their children, and the hardest lesson that I've had to learn is that we can't. It's not our fault. It can happen anywhere, and it especially happens within families. It's the fault of those who take advantage and the individual who wants to demonstrate his, because yes, nearly all perpetrators are male, his dominance over others. So rather than teaching kids that they have to protect themselves, teach them not to be bystanders and to identify and report perpetrators. Teach them not to be ashamed, and don't shame victims. I remind you again that your words matter. They go much farther than you can know. In conclusion, for anyone listening who feels unheard, please reach out to the nonprofit organization, the Army of Survivors, that my daughter founded after her assaults for athletes who have experienced or are experiencing abuse. Call 988 if you're considering self-harm or struggling, because there will always be someone there to talk to you. Or you can call 800-656-HOPE, 800-656-HOPE for RAIN, the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network that offers a free and confidential national sexual assault hotline. To anyone who has survived a horrific act of sexual violence, you are not alone. Many support you. Thank you.
All right, Nicole Robertson.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Robertson. I'm the assistant principal at Redford Union High School. I've worked in the district for over 20 years, and this is the first time I've ever spoken at a board meeting. I appreciate all the time and care that you put toward the district. Sorry. I need a minute.
It's okay.
With that said, in any position that has authority to it, it's imperative that we're careful and respectful of what we say and to whom we say it. I would like to give a personal response to Board Trustee Jim Bailey's comments he made at the February 12th regular board meeting. Mr. Bailey made a comment regarding Larry Nassar that everyone keeps referring to. I cannot express to you how I felt when I walked out of here, how inappropriate and unacceptable, offensive, and disrespectful those comments are. He then went on to say things like we prepare them for situations like these. These comments and others that he's made infer that women put themselves in these positions, that the abuse they endured is somehow their fault. I know that sometimes people make misogynistic comments out of ignorance, but when asked to apologize this comment, he would not. Negative, degrading comments such as these, I believe, will hinder young girls from reporting to a trusted adult in the district, believing they will not be heard or they will be called a liar. In a leadership position, this board has a responsibility to all the children and adults in this district, including all women. His comments can be very dangerous and can perpetuate harmful stereotypes about women. As a reminder to all, it's important to be mindful of how our words can impact others. Ignorance and insensitivity to subjects such as these show that he is not suitable for any position of authority that oversees children. I implore him to resign. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Robinson. Melissa Nichol.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Nichol. I'm the proud principal at Beach Elementary School. And throughout my time in RU and at Beach, there are many things that I'm proud of. However, there have been some concerning comments and actions by Trustee Bailey that should not only not have occurred, but should not be allowed to occur moving forward. The comments made by Mr. Bailey regarding women being assaulted by Larry Nassar have caused me to question his appropriateness with working with our students and staff, and it has also caused me to take pause in my comfort with interacting with him in a professional nature. Many of you may not be aware, but I'm the mother of an almost 16-year-old daughter who is a level 9 gymnast. I'm also honored to be the Booster Club president at her gym, where I'm able to help our gymnasts navigate through mental issues that arise from being an athlete at the high level that they are at. While I am grateful that my daughter is in a safe gym and in a safe environment, not everyone at her gym has been so lucky in previous placements. And one of her coaches was a victim of Larry Nassar and has had the trajectory of her life altered because of his actions. And as I sat in the audience and listened to Mr. Bailey flippantly speak of the horrendous actions of this man, I was appalled. I've had to navigate my own thoughts on how I could support a member of our school board remaining in his position when I didn't believe that his words or actions were prioritizing the safety of our students or our community. At the next board meeting, Mr. Bailey was then called to the table for his words, and instead of acknowledging that his choices were seen as inappropriate, he made the decision to continue to degrade women. I strongly believe that with Mr. Bailey on the board, we will continue to have incidents where he tears us down rather than build our community up. It is unfortunate that he is unwilling to see that his actions are causing such concerns throughout the school community. However, I call on the rest of the board